Welcome to the Price Academy, bite-sized history videos. This video is introducing Anne Boleyn. Anne Boleyn was the second wife of King Henry VIII and served as Queen of England in the 1530s. Anne was born around 1501 and was the daughter of Sir Thomas Boleyn and his wife, Lady Elizabeth Howard. During her youth, Anne lived in France for 7 years, being a lady-in-waiting at the French court. She served Claude of France, seen here, the wife of Francis I. Anne returned to England in 1522 and soon established a residence at King Henry VIII's court as a lady-in-waiting to Catherine of Aragon. By the mid-1520s, Anne had become one of the most admired ladies in court, attracting the attention of many men, including Henry Percy, the 6th Earl of Northumberland. Around the same time, Henry VIII fell in love with Anne and ordered against any possible marriage between her and Percy. It is believed that Mary Boleyn, who was one of the king's mistresses and also Anne's sister, introduced her to King Henry VIII, and in 1525 the king began to write love letters to Anne. In one of the letters, the king wrote, "If you give yourself up, heart, body and soul to me, I will take you for my only mistress, rejecting from thought and affection all others save yourself, to serve only you." Anne replied with rejection, explaining that she aimed to be married and not his mistress. Henry was so desperate to have Anne that he quickly configured a way to abandon his marriage to Catherine, as seen here. Henry petitioned for annulment to the Pope, citing the Book of Leviticus that if a man takes his brother's wife, he shall remain childless. Henry claimed his marriage to Catherine was condemned by God. Anne was made Marquise of Pembroke on the 3rd of September 1532, which was a title never held by a woman before, and had been previously held by Henry's great-uncle Jasper Tudor. In addition to the title, Anne received many residences in Wales, Somerset, Essex, and even Hertfordshire. Following a 6-year debate, Anne discovered she was pregnant in early 1533. Without the Pope's blessing, on January 25, 1533, Henry and Anne secretly married in a ceremony led by Thomas Cranmer, the Archbishop of Canterbury. Anne's coronation took place on the 29th of May 1533 in a lavish ceremony. She was 2 months pregnant with the future Queen Elizabeth at the time. On the 7th of September 1533, Anne gave birth to a daughter named Elizabeth, who would be the only child the couple would have together. In 1534, Archbishop Cranmer decreed Henry's marriage to Catherine of Aragon invalid, and Henry broke England away from Rome, setting up the Church of England. Anne was extremely unprepared for her new roles as queen and wife to Henry. A year into their union, Henry pursued and engaged in sexual relations with 2 of Anne's ladies-in-waiting, Jane Seymour and Madge Shelton. Anne was enraged by Henry's promiscuity and became increasingly jealous of his adulterous behaviour. He became increasingly frustrated by his wife's questions about his whereabouts, and resentment and hostility led to the marriage quickly falling apart. After Anne gave birth to a stillborn son in January 1536, Henry decided it was time to take hold of his legacy. He quickly settled on taking Jane Seymour as his future wife and sought out the annulment of his marriage to Anne Boleyn. Anne was detained at the Tower of London on several false charges, among them adultery, incest, and conspiracy. It is believed that Thomas Cromwell, chief minister to the king, and her former friend plotted her downfall. She went on trial on May 15, 1536, and she denied all charges against her. 4 days later, on May 19, 1536, she was unanimously convicted by a court of peers, and Henry's marriage to her was annulled and declared invalid. That same day, Anne was taken to Tower Green in London for her execution by a French swordsman. There on the scaffold, she delivered a speech, asking, "Lord, have mercy on me," and "God, I commend my soul." Anne's ermine mantle and headdress was removed. She knelt down and was blindfolded. With one swift motion, Anne was beheaded. Her body was buried in an unmarked grave. Her brother George Boleyn was executed in addition to Anne, as he was accused of being incestuous with her. Thomas Boleyn lived till 1539. Within days of the execution, Henry and Jane Seymour were formally wed. Elizabeth, the daughter of Henry and Anne, would later emerge as one of England's most revered queens. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this video, to like and subscribe to the channel. You can follow me at Twitter at LittleMissHistory81, at TanyaAlex38.